Ecchi anime. Undoubtedly one of the most controversial genres of anime, which I'm gonna be honest, kind of makes sense. I mean, the whole point of this genre is fan service, but it's also because a lot of the anime in this genre are hit or miss. See, with a good ecchi anime, you could probably find yourself a new guilty pleasure, but with the bad ecchi, you'll probably regret ever getting into anime in the first place. Now, there's a lot of ecchi anime out there, and me personally, I've seen a fair share of them, some of which I've really enjoyed, like Monogatari, Food Wars, Mushoku Tensei, but in this video, I will not be talking. It just shows us a bunch of things that'll probably be important later on, and also introduces us to the main cast of characters. In this season, we're introduced to Issei, the main character, his two friends, whose names I honestly cannot remember for the life of me, and I don't even feel like looking their names up, so I'm gonna just call them Issei's friends for the rest of this video. Rias, who's the main girl of the harem, and probably the most interesting character of this season. We got Akeno, who is best girl, don't find me on that. Next, we have Kaneko, the lolly of the show, because every ecchi needs one. And lastly, we got Asia, the worst girl. Now, she wasn't that bad this season, so I won't go too hard on her, but best believe, later on in this video, when we get to season 2 and 3, I will be on that ass. Anyways, one other character I didn't mention was Kiba, who's like the only other important male character aside from Issei and a couple of the antagonists from this season. But that's basically it when it comes to the characters in the season. Now, the story in the season was okay. To be completely honest though, it doesn't really start getting interesting until like the last few episodes, which mostly sets up stuff for the next season. Overall though, I actually enjoyed the season. My expectations were kind of low because of my previous experience with the first episode, but by the end of the first season, I was actually interested in seeing where the story would go from here. Overall, I'd give the first season a 6 out of 10, but hey, it's only up from here. Alright, so now we're on to season 2, and this is where things really started to pick up for me. Whereas season 1 gave us a feel of what the story was going to be and mostly introduced us to the main cast, season 2 expands on that and focuses heavily on the story, and it also sets up stuff for the third season. One thing I forgot to mention last season was the series fights. The fights honestly aren't that bad. The magic system can get kind of confusing sometimes, but it's nothing too different from your basic light novel magic system. One funny thing I do want to mention that I noticed while watching was, I swear, every time a female character in the show fights, whenever they get hit, they always lose a piece of clothing. Like, they can get punched once and then boom, a titty pops out. But anyways, like I mentioned earlier, this season is more story focused. We're introduced to new characters like Irina and Zenovia, who is the second best girl, by the way, don't at me. But both her and Irina start off as antagonists, but both become good guys, and Zenovia even joins Issei's harem. We've got Azazel, who's basically Issei's mentor, and he helps train Issei and a bunch of the other main characters. We have Gasper, who is a vampire and is also a member of the occult club, which I forgot to mention is the reason why all these characters know each other. We're also introduced to Valley, who's one of the main antagonists this season, and he also becomes a reoccurring character. And that's basically it when it comes to new characters. Now, like I said, season 2 is more story focused, and we get to learn about the war between the underworld and heaven, and we learn about the 3 factions, which are the devils, the angels, and the fallen angels. The third of which is the faction that Azazel is the leader of. And most of the stuff that involves the war this season mostly is build up for the next season. And I would leave it off here if it wasn't for one thing. Asia. Now, I told y'all I was gonna be on her ass, and now her time has come. Now, last season I let her off the hook, you know. Last season she wasn't that bad, she was pretty tolerable throughout it, but this season, nah, it's a different story. And some of y'all who probably ain't seen the show that have got this far probably wondered, oh, why you don't like her? Oh, she seems like a pretty fine character. Listen, okay, I'm gonna use one scene to fully show y'all why I do not like her. So literally the first scene of the season. So we're in Issei's room, and Issei's just waking up, and we see Rias right next to him, absolutely no clothes on. I'm not gonna lie, I probably should have picked a different scene for this, because I'm gonna have to do a lot of censor for this one. Anyways though, Rias is all up on Issei, hugging him and stuff, and Rias is ready to give him a one-way ticket to Pound Town. But then out of nowhere, Asia starts knocking on their door, and they're like, hold on, give us some time to get ready and whatnot. But she just barges in anyway. Like, oh my god. And what sucks even more is that she does this for the remainder of the series. Her purpose is literally to just cock block. And I know this isn't the only ecchi that does this, but bro, this trope is so annoying. But I've been talking about this for too long. Let's just move on to season 3. Alright, so now we're on to season 3. This is going to be the last season that I'm going to review for this video, like I said earlier. This is also the season that the first 2 seasons have been building up to. So this season starts off with the occult club taking a trip to the underworld. Also, Issei and his family live in a 6-story mansion now. don't question it. Anyways, once the characters get to the underworld, we're introduced to a bunch of new characters. And I'm not gonna go over all of them because it's way too many characters. So if they're not mentioned later in the vid, then I guess they're not that important. But anyways, one thing I forgot to mention about this season is that it's like 3 separate arcs. So this one is the first arc, there's one right after this, and at the end there's a filler arc. So yeah, but this first arc, it's pretty good. It's basically this big fight between everybody and this guy named Loki. Not that one, this one. Anyways though, this guy is basically trying to achieve Ragnarok, but pretty much if you know anything about Norse mythology or anything related to it, this basically means he's trying to destroy the world. The action here is really good. Seeing everyone go all out was great. You even get introduced to Kenno's dad and he helps them. You also get a new girl in the harem, Rosewise, or Ross, however you pronounce her name. But yeah, this arc was decent. My major problem with it though was just how rushed it felt. Like, it felt like they were trying to put way too much into just like 5-6 episodes. And honestly, this is just a problem with season 3 in general. It just felt like it was trying to fit way too much, which causes certain things to not get explained so well, and even affect some of the characters, like Akenna for example. I really wanted to see more of her relationship with her dad, but we just didn't get that much from it, which is kind of unfortunate because Akenna is one of my favorite characters from the series. But it's all good though, because she's still the baddest in the show. Anyways though, the next arc is a rescue mission arc. So we start off back at Earth, and the club enters this thing called a raiding game, which is basically like a tournament between devils. And the first opponent is this dude named Diodora, who was actually introduced in the previous arc, and this guy is just disrespectful. But the most important thing he pretty much does in this whole arc is kidnap Asia, honestly doing the Lord's work. You know what, as a matter of fact, this arc could have just ended here, but it unfortunately doesn't. So everybody goes to save Asia. They retrieve her and fight against the dude that kidnapped her, only for her to get taken away again by someone else. And this right here sets Issei off. And this right here gives us one of the best moments from the entire show. This moment is just so badass. He activates this thing called Juggernaut Drive, and bro just goes berserk on this dude. I mean, I personally wouldn't be going this crazy over Asia, but that's just me though. Anyways, once Issei defeats this dude, he can't control his power, and Valley has to come in and stop him. Asia's also perfectly fine, which I guess is a good thing. And that's pretty much the end of this second arc. And I would stop it here, but like I said, we do have a filler arc. But I'm gonna go through this pretty fast because honestly, this is like the worst part of the season. And things get very messy and confusing here. But pretty much Loki, the guy that was the main antagonist of the first arc of the season, yeah, he pretty much like put a curse on Rias that's making her turn against everybody. And for like the rest of the arc, everybody's trying to like figure out a way to break the curse. Long story short though, we basically get Rias back, and we had some pretty good moments from her and Issei. Honestly, that's like the only redeeming factor of this arc. Kinda sucks that we gotta end it off here. But yeah, that's all 3 seasons of the show. And now I'm gonna rank them and give my opinion on whether this show is worth watching or not. So at the bottom of the list, I'm gonna put season 1. Like I said earlier, season 1 basically just introduces us to the characters, and it has some decent moments, but in all honesty, it really didn't start picking up for me until like later on in the season. So that's why I gotta give it the 3rd place. And in 2nd place, I gotta give it to season 3. Season 3 has some really good moments for the series, but like I mentioned with it, it just felt very rushed at certain points, and the filler arc at the end was pretty bad, but I still prefer most of it over season 1, so that's why I'm putting it higher than it. And at last, at number 1, season 2. Just overall solid all the way through. It focused heavily on the story and didn't feel rushed at all, and did really well with showcasing us new stuff, which is why I have given it the number 1 spot. And now I will finally answer the question, is High School DxD worth watching? Honestly, I'll say yes. If you're new to harem anime or need an ecchi anime to watch, I think this is definitely a good entry point. While I don't think it's anything too crazy in terms of quality, it's still a pretty solid series. It has a pretty good cast, a bunch of fights, and some pretty good lore. And to add the cherry on top, a bunch of titties. But if any of this has piqued your interest, I definitely would recommend watching the show or reading the light novel, which I've heard is actually even better. But with all that being said, I'm gonna end the video here. Hope y'all enjoy. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.